Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. It's Ro, and today we are going to be making the sip and sling purse that I just made on Instagram. I've been posting about it, and yeah, let's do it. So first up, you are going to make a circle. This circle I used using the flower die from Scrap Diva Designs. The flower of the circle measures 3 1/8. I think we can figure out how to switch or how to change the size of the circle. I know it's gonna change like a few of the measurements if you do that, but we will work on this measurement for now. Once you made the circle, the next thing you are going to do is you are going to cut that off. What you're going to do is you score the corners, like the corner edges of those of the circle. So what I'm doing is I'm just lining it up so I can score each corner. That's okay if you make mistakes, because we will cut that off. It makes it easier for me to know where to cut if I score it first. Also, if you are going to use a double-sided paper, I suggest that you don't make like another you don't make this part, not this part, but you don't draw your template on another piece of paper, because it's going to be way too thick. What I did here is I used double-sided paper, so on top of the double-sided paper for the front part, I adhered it to this one, and then I also had another double-sided paper for the inside to line the inside, so it was so thick. And there we go. We cut off those corners. Next thing we're gonna do is we are going to cut that curve on the corner, on the top corner. Just give me a second to figure out what I'm gonna do. This is usually what happens when I do something with no template, like if I don't copy it from another project, because it takes me a while to figure out the measurements. I was gonna score, and then I figured out it'll be easier if I cut first. So that's what we're doing here. We cut that off. This is going to be our bottom base. And once we cut that off, it'll be easier for us to make our next score marks. Next thing we need to do is we need to score. We are gonna make 2 scores here, and first we score at 2 inches, and then we score at 3. And then after we score at 3, you also cut at 3. Oh, a quick reminder, you see me writing here. I write the measurements. I will also be writing on those white cardstocks, but don't follow the measurements yet the first time you see it, because there are some of them that I made a few mistakes with the measurements, so just wait for a little bit. I will correct them in the later part of the video. Now we're back. So again, we score at 2, and then we score at 3, and then we cut at 3. And that's it. Look at me loading again, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do next. And there you go. So next up, we are going to be making the front part of our purse. So for the front part of our purse, we are going to be measuring 3/1/8 by 5. I'm just making sure I have the right measurement. That's the part that we cut off, and we're going to use that. Again, the measurement for that part is going to be 3/1/8 by 5, and then we are going to score at 0.5. That's going to be our flap. You fold that, and that's what the front part of the purse is going to be. Okay, next piece we are going to need is going to be the flap, the flap cover of that purse. And for that, we are going to need a piece of paper measuring 3 1/8 by 8 1/2, and we score at 0.5. The 0.5 again, that's going to be our flap that we will adhere onto that base, that bottom base. You see, I have the picture of the original Starbucks Sip and Sling purse. Okay. Again, for this next piece, we are going to need paper that measures 3 1/8 by 8 1/2, and we score at 0.5. Once you did that, what I did here is I grabbed that flower die again and used that circle to help me make a curve for a flap. You can make the cover of your purse straight, but I thought it looked better. Cut that off. So that's the score mark that I mentioned earlier. And you will fold that. And then again, that flap is what we are going to be using so we can adhere this part to the other pieces. Next thing we need to do is we need to cut papers for the side of our purse, and that is 4.5 by 2, and we are going to score at 0.5 on both sides, and that is on the 2-inch side. We need 2 of those. That's going to be the sides of our purse. Again, that is 4.5 by 2, and score 0.5 on both sides. As you can see here, I put 4. That's the first mistake that I did with the measurements. Again, it's not 4, but 4.5. I will correct that later. But everything else, the measurements are okay. This measurement is okay. Just saying that that score mark to the corner, that's 1 inch. And the whole thing is also 3 and 1/8, I believe. But that doesn't really matter. As long as we got the score marks right, which is at 2 and 3, like we did earlier, then we're good. These measurements are also correct. That's 3 and 1/8 by 0.5, and you score at 0.5. And for the last piece we have so far, this measurement is also correct. That's 3 and 1/8 by 8.5, and we score at 5. I mean 0.5. Next piece we have to make is the acetate, the piece with the window, the acetate window. And for that we are going to need a piece of paper measuring 7 by 5. And then we score on 3 sides. So we score 0.5 both sides on the 7-inch side. And then we score 0.5 on the bottom. That's where I made those snips. So again, the measurement is 7 by 5. We score at 0.5 on both sides. Now this is a mistake. You see I wrote 6 inches. That's not 6 inches, it's 6 inches. I will also correct that later. By this time we will have all the pieces that we need. There you go, I corrected it, so it's 7 inches and not 6 inches. Next thing I did was I lined everything with pattern paper. And there you go, that's my mistake. It's 4.5. So I lined everything with paper, front and back. You don't need to absolutely you don't need to follow what I did here, how I covered it, because what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to cover as much of the white cardstock parts as I could. But if you use double-sided pattern paper, it's not going to be a problem, because even those flaps will have patterns, so you don't really need to. Yeah, you don't need to cover it as much as what I've been doing here. Next thing is we are going to be putting everything together. First thing that I'm going to glue is the side. After I glued the cover flap and the bottom base, just in case you don't know where you're supposed to stick those sides, it's going to be on the, not on the side with the curve. Well, just look closely and you will, I'm pretty sure you'll figure it out where to stick everything. There you go. Once you stick those parts, the next thing you are going to glue is the front part of the purse. I went ahead and cut a piece of paper to cover that white part. Again, if you are using a double-sided cardstock, you won't have this problem. So here I am going to adhere that front side of the purse, and I'm gonna do that by gluing down one side of that side flap to the cover of the purse. Up next, we put that piece aside and let's work on our window piece. We start off by looking for maybe a square metal die to cut off our window. Well, it doesn't have to be square, it can be whatever shape you want your window to be, but square is most common and it's easier to sew in the acetate piece if I use the square one. I am using the basic nesting dies from Coco and Rito. I'll just run that and here we go. We have our window. I also inserted the acetate piece. As you can see, it's harder to manipulate the shape of this window piece because, again, my paper is way too thick. I used way too much paper. Up next, let's cut a few strips of paper for our handles for the sling. And for this, we cut 2 strips which measured 0.5 by 4.5. I need to do a little bit of sewing for this one. So what I did is I sewed the whole the strip first, and then we fold it in half. And then the next thing we do is we are gonna sew those strips together. We sew those strips with on the window piece. Once we're done, this is how it's gonna look. This is where we are going to connect our strap. Now we're ready to put everything together. Please make sure you remember where to stick this piece, which side. And also, you need a lot more patience when it comes to doing this part, because for me, this is the hardest part. It's because you have to shape that paper. Next, we are going to glue that pocket piece together. I kind of messed up here, and because of that window piece, it kind of pushed back that flap, so I had to cut a little bit of that cactus side just so I could close it like straighter. We are going to cut a strip of paper, and this will be a strap for our bag. It's again 0.5 in width, and the length, it really depends on how long or short you want it to be. For mine, I cut it enough, like long enough, so I can still cover the edge when I put in the lining, the paper lining for the bag. Let me see. So I did a 0.5 by 8. And then you sew that, and then we stick it. Next, we are going to cut a strip of paper that measures 0.25 by 12, and that we will use to line the bottom of our purse. But before that, here I am pointing out that I cut another strip of paper and I used it to cover the inside, to mat the inside of the window part of our purse. It's just to make it sturdier, because we have that strap in the back, and I wanted to cover the corners of it. But yeah, anyway, what we're doing right now is we are going to be gluing that strip of paper. I like to do this when I'm doing like 3D projects, especially with purses, because it makes the edges cleaner. Once we wrap that strip around, let's cut off the excess, and that's it. All that's left to do at this point is make our sling and add embellishments. And also, as you can see, that flap, I just inserted it there just so it curves better, like it gets the shape of how I want it to be. So here you can see that I just stuck a velcro dots, and that's how it looks so far. So now we are going to make our strap, and the strap I believe is 0.5 by 12. So let's get our paper, let's also sew that, and there we go. Now to make this strap, what we need to do is we need to fold the corners of that strap, and that's where we are going to insert our jump rings. So we fold it and then we sew. You can see right there, I sewed the corner off like after it's folded, and again we are going to insert our jump rings. I believe my jump rings are 16 mm and they're really thick. To connect them together, I am also going to be using lobster clasps, the one that swivels. So we attach jump rings to our straps. We're also going to attach jump rings to that window piece straps. I made a mistake here and forgot to add the lobster clasps to that strip. I had to open up my jump rings again. There you go. I added the clasps. If I had bigger, if that lobster clasp had a wider, like round part, then I wouldn't have had to use the jump rings there. But then my paper was wider, so I had to use a different jump ring. Connect that to our purse, and that's how it looks. All that's left to do is to embellish it, and we are done. So thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you make one. Do ask me if you have any questions, and thank you so much. Bye.